On Father's Day, my daughter handed her father-in-law a $13,000 cruise. She handed me a $2 lottery ticket and laughed. "If I'm lucky, half is mine," she said, smirking. I smiled. Inside, my blood was boiling. Before we begin, please subscribe and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Dad, here's your gift. If you win, remember half is mine. Kara tossed the ticket onto the table with that familiar theatrical flair. Eric, her husband, opened an elegant box and produced 2 glossy cruise vouchers, first class, private, balcony, Mediterranean. The kind of gift that makes people lean forward and pretend they're not impressed. I smoothed the crumpled paper between my fingers. $2. The same sum I used to give her for ice cream when she was 7. "You shouldn't have," I said, and meant it. "Oh, it's just a joke," she said, waving me off. "But if you do win, I expect my cut." I paid for it after all. The room tightened. Plates were suddenly interesting. Voices lowered. My sister Margaret cleared her throat. My grandson looked up from his phone. Eric smiled like the kind of man who has never had to worry about the grocery bill. That night, when everyone left, the ticket lay under my coffee cup. I opened my laptop and checked my bank account out of habit. 40 years of doing the same thing. Every expense accounted for. Every penny watched. Then I saw a charge that made my coffee go cold. Premium travel services, $13,300 and something. Purchased last week. I called Kara. Her voice came through with that bored politeness children develop when they don't need you anymore. "Oh, that. I bought Eric his cruise," she said. "He deserves something nice." "You took $13,000 from my account," I said. "You wouldn't have spent it," she replied. "It's family money, family money." The words landed like a slap. I thought about the double shifts at the garage, the nights I fell asleep at the table because I'd worked 16 hours. I thought about tuition checks and textbooks, about being the man who did the hard, quiet work. She hung up with a tone that said the conversation was over. The next morning, I called the bank. Rebecca at customer service revoked Kara's access in 15 minutes. New passwords, new cards, small steps that felt like armor. My kitchen felt different after that. Not shabby, honest mine. Kara didn't like the new reality. Her voice on the phone was sharp that afternoon. "Dad, what the hell did you do to my card?" It was declined at Nordstrom. "Do you know how embarrassing that was?" "I removed your access," I said. "You took money from my account without permission." "It was family money," she shot back. "You don't understand real generosity." She posted about it on social media, of course. A careful, wounded post that painted me as paranoid and cruel. Neighbors liked and commented. Sympathy gathered like a small cloud around her. My inbox filled with questions I didn't want to answer. 3 days later, insomnia and a rerun of old resentments had me flipping channels. I stopped on the lottery drawing. The announcer's voice was cheerfully indifferent. "Tonight's numbers are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42. Powerball 18. I felt a chill. I had seen those numbers before. In anger earlier, I'd memorized the digits on the crumpled ticket she'd thrown at me. I tore through the kitchen trash. Coffee grounds, wrappers, a lottery ticket, damp and dog-eared. I rinsed it at the sink like it was fragile porcelain, laid it on the table and read, 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18, perfect. Every number matched. I called the lottery hotline with hands that did not stop shaking. The automated voice confirmed the jackpot. $120 million. The paper in my hand was worth more than my house, more than my car. It was worth a whole new life. I did what any sensible man would do. I put the ticket in a plastic sleeve. I drove to the Ohio Lottery office. I waited in a lobby that smelled like polished floors and nervous hope. I handed over the ticket to a clerk who looked at me with the caution reserved for strangers with sudden wealth. When they counted the numbers and told me I had indeed won, the world did something it rarely does. It shifted. The modest kitchen, the worn linoleum, the photos on the wall of a daughter learning to ride a bike, everything rewound, then fast-forwarded into a different future. I could have shouted. I could have posted a photo of the ticket and the check and made the world my witness. I didn't. I thought about Kara's words, about entitlement, about respect. I thought about the quiet people on my street who'd never had much but who had everything that mattered. I did 2 things that day. First, I protected myself. I talked with lawyers and financial advisors who explained things in simple, solid language. Estate planning, trusts, clear accounts that could not be touched by anyone but me. I put the money to work in ways that mattered. I paid off the house. I set my sister up so she would never worry about bills again. I seeded college funds for my grandson, and for the neighborhood kids I knew deserved a break. Second, I let Kara learn the hard lesson of respect. I didn't humiliate her. I didn't try to punish her publicly. I made sure she could never access my accounts again. I made sure that when she called, she had to ask, not assume. Real consequences replaced soft excuses. Not everyone will like the way I handled it. Some will call it petty. Others will call it righteous. I don't care. What I know is this. Money can buy things. Money can't buy respect. Money can't fix what was broken between us, but it can give you the choice to walk away with your dignity. If you're still here, hit subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from in the comments. And remember this, sometimes the smallest, meanest joke becomes the thing that wakes you up. I never planned on a $2 ticket changing everything, but it did. And I learned that a lesson taught with quiet resolve often lasts longer than one shouted in anger. Janet Chen smiled professionally as she examined my lottery ticket. This is quite a story. Found it in your trash? I threw it away in anger, I admitted. My daughter bought it as a Father's Day gift, but the circumstances were complicated. Janet nodded without judgment and placed the ticket under a specialized scanner. We see all kinds of situations here, she said. Verification is the important part. Mr. Woods, I'm happy to tell you this is indeed a winning ticket. The words echoed in the sterile office. I gripped the arms of my chair, afraid I might float away. Janet continued. For prizes of this magnitude, our verification process takes 48 hours. We must confirm authenticity, complete legal paperwork, and arrange the payout. I nodded, numb. I signed papers and handed over identification, barely processing talk of taxes, payment options, and publicity rules. By the time I left the lottery office, my head swam with figures and legal terms. One fact remained crystal clear. I was worth $120 million. The drive home felt like walking through someone else's life. The corner grocery, Mrs. Patterson's rose garden, the school where Kara learned to read. Everything looked the same, but I felt like an alien observer. Less than an hour later, Kara's car screeched into my driveway. She burst in without knocking, flushed and determined. Dad, I heard about the lottery. Somebody at the office saw your name. I remained seated at the kitchen table. The official paperwork spread out like evidence. Hello, Kara, I said. Don't hello me, she snapped, electric. Do you realize what this means? We're millionaires. Half is mine. Remember? That was a gift, Kara, I said, calmer than I felt. You gave it to me. You can't take it back, she hardened. We had an agreement. Everyone heard me say it. You threw that ticket at me like garbage, I said quietly. You bought it with money you took from my account. Stole? Her voice rose. I used family money for a family gift. You wouldn't have spent it. Now you try to cheat me out of what's mine. I looked at my daughter and saw a stranger. The little girl who used to curl in my lap had been replaced by someone who thought first about what belonged to her. She slammed her hand on the table. I'll sue you. I'll prove that ticket belongs to me. I'll make everyone know what kind of man you are. The door slammed behind her. Her car engine faded. I looked back at the paperwork. $120 million. I felt only tired. The next morning, my phone buzzed like a hornet hive. 15 missed calls, 12 texts, a social media avalanche. Kara had posted at 6:47 a.m. Urgent. My father stole my lottery ticket. The post painted me as cruel. The comments multiplied, angry and sympathetic. Her Instagram followed with a tearful video. Eric posted a measured denunciation on LinkedIn, describing reverse elder abuse and calling for community outrage. Friends, neighbors, former colleagues. The internet took sides before I could speak. Margaret called. Stephen, what is happening? People are asking if you stole Kara's ticket. Yes, she bought it, I explained. Yes, she joked about sharing. Yes, I won. No, I don't believe I owe her anything. Margaret's sympathy felt thin. The story had a hook now and everyone wanted to latch on. Local groups lit up. Channel 6 wanted an interview. The Columbus Dispatch asked for comment. An unknown hotline offered legal help. I closed my laptop and stared out the window at neighbors who looked away. Then William Johnson called. "Mr. Woods, may we meet?" He sounded steady, controlled. He asked for Murphy's Diner in an hour. Murphy's Diner smelled of coffee and vinyl booths. William arrived in a navy suit, calm and deliberate. He said he'd witnessed the whole exchange on Father's Day. He described Kara tossing the ticket across the table. It was a gift, he said. No terms. No agreement about splitting winnings. He brought up a public statement and, with the weight of his reputation, posted it. I watched the tide of opinion begin to shift. 2 weeks later, Janet Chen from the Ohio Lottery Commission called. Verification was complete. They offered a formal check presentation ceremony. Given the recent publicity, she suggested a public event. I said yes. That evening I laid out my Navy suit, the one from my wife's funeral. I drove to the Columbus headquarters the next morning to a flurry of cameras, lights, and officials. The ceremony felt unreal. An oversized check. A backdrop with the lottery logo. Flashbulbs like summer lightning. Janet Chen introduced me. She smiled and the announcer said my name. I stepped up, shook hands, and spoke plainly. I plan to use this blessing responsibly, I said into the microphone. To help others. To live with dignity. Questions came fast. Would I quit work? How would I spend the money? I answered with gratitude and plans. Pay off the house, help family in measured ways, invest in projects that mattered. Then the commotion. Kara and Eric pushed through the crowd. Kara shouted, "That's my ticket! We had an agreement." Security moved in. A reporter thrust a microphone at me. "Mr. Woods, can you comment?" The ticket was a Father's Day gift, I said. William Johnson witnessed it. That's the simple truth. The cameras found the story they wanted. Kara's outrage played out live. Eric tried to quiet her. I stood steady. When the ceremony ended, I carried paperwork and the ceremonial check out to my car. In my rearview mirror, I saw them still arguing by their BMW. For the first time in months, I felt calm. The next morning, Kara knocked soft and tentative. She walked in like someone apologizing for a storm. "Dad, can we talk?" she said, eyes red. She told me a story about debts, about a failing investment firm, about foreclosure and desperation. "We owe $400,000, she said. $2 million would save our house. I listened. I recognized the performance, the tears, the practiced helplessness. I thought of the times I covered for them, the nights I worked long into the morning to keep the lights on. I thought of boundaries I'd never set. "Kara," I said, "I won this ticket. You gave it to me. You stole from my account. You humiliated me online. I won't reward that behavior." She became frantic. "You'll ruin our family. You'll never see Jake again. You'll be alone." The threats were sharp and cruel. "If that's the consequence," I said quietly, "I'll accept it." She left, slamming the door. I watched her drive away with the tires squealing, and I felt a strange mixture of grief and relief. 3 months later, I boxed up my house. I sold Henderson's restoration business to start fresh. I moved 3 hours away to Dayton, where nobody knew my name or my story. I reopened the classic auto shop under a new sign, Woods Classic Auto Restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics. I started the Single Fathers Foundation to help kids who needed a second chance. I framed the lottery ticket in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Sometimes the most valuable gifts arrive disguised as garbage. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones you choose to keep. Kara called a few times. I let the calls go to voicemail. I blocked numbers that became toxic. I focused on work, on community, on quiet mornings without whispers following me down the grocery aisle. A year later, I sat in the shop and watched a 1955 Chevrolet roll out, restored to mint condition. The owner wept. I felt the rightness of it. The money hadn't changed who I was. It revealed who I had always been. If you like this story, please hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from in the comments. Share your thoughts below. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.